Alrighty, guys. It is 3:30 this Tuesday, February 10th, and we're time to wrap it up. And so far, I had to say we're holding, but barely. And I've been waiting for them to knock it down, but it's been as they grind. They ran into this 2 o'clock hour, hasn't quite done anything. Looked to me like I was in that short trade, the last short trade I took. Now it looks like I bailed way too early, but at the time, and I was fading some heat, and it wasn't looking too pretty. So I always try to fade it when I had to do that. After the fact, you see, it ran down all the way down here. So I'm looking at the lows here. They were running to the support area at 69.70. So far that held. They probed below it a few times. If they can hold at or above these levels, I'm going to stay with the bias to the upside. It's going to be initially looking to buy weakness again against the 70s and the 60s here for rotations up. But we'll see. They had to close first, and then we'll see how we're going to handle it from there. Now the news for this morning was kind of okay, not too crazy. Retail sales a little bit weak. Tomorrow morning we get the employment situation at 8:30 and all report and a 10-year auction. But the employment situation is going to be a big deal for tomorrow morning. It's going to be a little bit crazy. So I'm going to see how that goes. But I took a few trades, 5 round turns on the ES, down $10 on that. I was down a little bit more first, and I had a few shakeouts and then this small little mover to the downside. So I'm down $10 on those 5 trade contracts. On the Nasdaq, I had two contracts that got in early on this morning on the great trade on the way up. That was this guy right there. I tried one long trade down on the bottom here. I got in, got knocked out of that trade, and I tried another one on the way up here as to start taking out the mean and got into a nice rotation up here. Got out a little bit early, but you never know when you get a big burst like that, how far they're really going to go. So I got like 118 out of that setup, and I'll take it. I will take that any time of the day. So I'm down 10 on the ES, up 118 on the Nasdaq. And Nasdaq is a little bit weaker. You can see that kind of taking out the lows here. They've been down below the 270s. They haven't taken out the 220s yet. That was the lower area we looked at this morning. So I would start off range bound on the Nasdaq too. A slight bias to the upside. Looks like they're holding on just to see how far they can take it. But if they can't show a little bit of a little stamina here going into the close, if they start taking out these lows, so we're going to start off range bound. Not going to start on the short side unless they go head down, taking out these 25 100s or something to that effect. But if they just bust down here, as long as they hold the 220s, starting off range bound. If they can close above the 280s, I'm starting with a slight bias to the upside, but that's where we are. So that's the ES and the Nasdaq going into tomorrow to the employment situation. Now, and the last dynamic here is the bond market. I got creamed. They handed me my butt, my ass. That's usually what happens. First trade set up going into the news. Totally sloppy on my part. I should have known better than to try to put on that trade right before news. That's, yes, when you don't pay attention, you had to pay up. And unfortunately, it never works in your favor, right? It never ever does that. So they knocked me out of that one. That was just okay. So I had nothing to show for that. Then I had a nice setup here going into the open and got in that. And these guys, look at that. They just took this all the way up here to the 17. I got stopped out at the 12s, and I did not re-engage it. No shot at all to get out of that trade or anything like that. And then I waited a little bit longer. I took another trade here on the short side after we ran into resistance here, right at this upper area, the 19th. I got in a little bit early on that one, and I got in at the 17th, and then I took it all the way up to the 20s before it finally failed. And then, of course, I had enough to get out to cut my losses in half, but I was kind of sitting in that thing, kind of letting it develop. And of course, they had to grind me out. And look, and they got me out. They got me out with one tick of a loss there. So very frustrating this is one of those things when you have a winner, a little heat turns into a winner, and then you end up letting it become a loser at the end. That's just frustrating. But what can you do? You had to take your shot, and the bond market is such that if you don't get it right when you get it, and you get in it, you can get into a spot like that. Sometimes you sit in that thing and it can go all the way and back down again. So it just depends. But anyway, so I took the shot, didn't work out, so that was that. So starting off with a slight bias to the upside on the bonds, looks like they're not backing off a whole lot. So they're 116.16 trading around there. So we'll see how far they can take it. So early on, looking to buy against that 1610s, 1610.11, against the lower end at 16s for rotations up. All right, so that's the bonds. So that was kind of a little bit brutal, but you do what you can. When you see the setup, you kind of had to take it. The first one was the sloppy one. That was a mistake on my part that cost me. The other two are actually not that crazy bad, and it's just it just did not work. So the second one did not work. The third one kind of worked, but then I let it get away from me. But anyway, we'll leave it there. So looks like we're getting some weakness into the close here. Not a great sign, and we'll see how far they're going to try to take this lower. Alrighty, guys, we leave it there, and we'll see you guys back bright and early in the morning to go at this again. And alrighty, guys, I'll see you in the morning. Later.